Okay. Hi guys. Well, I'm happy to announce that today I found out we have another listener, Willie, and Grammy's cleaning closets, and she came across this. Look at this. Willie painted this. Isn't this beautiful? We have no idea what. Well, maybe does it go this way, or maybe this way, or this way. Well, let's see. Let's get it all in here. We don't know, but it's really nice, though, isn't it, Willie? And whatever it is, and it's painted on the back of a Red's Apple Ale. Save $2. So this is Willie's painting. Okay, tomorrow we're gonna have something from Sammy. So if Sammy isn't listening, it's about time that he tunes in, because he's gonna see something that Sammy did. And that Grammy had kept in her closet since he was a little boy, many years ago. So today we're going to start off with a joke, and here's a joke. Okay, now tell this to your dad tonight. Why can't you trust the king of the jungle? Because he's always a lion. Get it? You know, king of the jungle is a lion, and then you can't trust somebody that's lying. Okay, well, let me give you another one. Okay, make sure you tell your dad this joke tonight. When is a car not a car? When it turns into a street. Aha! Get it? Yeah, I thought you would. Okay. Back to our book. We're reading The Rope in the Jungle. Caleb Crabtree is on his way down to Chiapas to fix a rope that broke. And, this is later in the afternoon today. So it's not in the morning. And I don't have any coffee, but I do have apple juice. Now it's just apple juice. There's no rum in here. Oh. Good apple juice, though. So it must have been good apples. Okay, we're on chapter 3, which is called Lazarus. They're still on the ship, the good ship Godspeed, on the way down to Chiapas. And Mr. Crabtree, Caleb Crabtree, is seasick, and he's been hanging over the side, throwing up. Which isn't a very good picture, but he held on to his hat, and he hasn't lost his hat, thank goodness. Otherwise, he would be hatless. Okay, here goes the story. Are you ready? All right. Okay, put your listening ears on. The ship's gong rang one bell. Ding! That's the ship's gong. And Trey went back to the cabin to tell Mr. Crabtree that it was supper time. Caleb turned an even more awful green. Oh, his stomach was so sick, and clamped his jaws tightly together. He was lying limp on the lower bunk, the chamber pot on the floor conveniently near. I get that sight. He's laying on the bunk and he's throwing up under the chamber pot. Aha, he said, I have eaten my last meal. I shall shortly draw my last breath. Or at least I hope so. If I am fortunate, this will not be a long and wasting disease, but a merciful, quick death. He struggled to raise an arm and point to the cabin table. Trey, poor lad. Here he's pointing. Well, it's hard to point. Let's see, point. Point. Okay. He struggled to raise an arm and point to the cabin table. Trey, poor lad, I hate to ask you this so soon after your own bereavement, but when I'm gone, will you see that letter yonder is delivered to my brothers Jabez and Jethro in Newton, if they can read it? My hand is palsied. It informs them that I shall be buried at sea, and make disposition of my property between them. Mr. Crabtree, said Trey, valiantly trying not to smile, you're only seasick. No, my boy, Caleb gave a hollow laugh. Beyond doubt, I have been bitten by some lethal insect that the Godspeed has unwittingly carried from the tropics. I pray that none of them get loose in Boston. Mr. Crabtree, you're only seasick, Trey repeated, still smothering his amusement. I've seen it before. If you can't make it to the saloon for supper, can I fetch you a dish of something? Apple juice time. Please don't. Oh, speak of it again, said Caleb, wretchedly reaching for the chamber pot. Go quickly now, lad. Up. That's Crabtree throwing up. Trey went, and quickly, on his way aft to the saloon, he reflected on the fact that Caleb Crabtree was an innocent who needed protecting, and that he, Trey Clark, was the only available protector. He had already defended the master rope maker from a lowly sailor's mockery. Now he would have to nurse him through what Mr. Crabtree was convinced was a mortal affliction. The untraveled and unsophisticated little man was aboard the ship, on which, so far as Trey knew, he could talk to only 5 other people. He would be landing in a country where he spoke not one word of the language. He would have to make his way through a possible dangerous jungle. He would have to find an unmarked spot in that jungle, a spot not possibly, but certainly dangerous, if the Zui seaman had spoken the truth. The elderly, portly, Spanish-speechless Caleb Crabtree was not mused, the boy, very well equipped to do these things, but Trey Clark was. Trey was the last diner to enter the saloon, and he apologized to the table at large, explaining his captain mate's condition. The others at the table, Captain Hootsma, First Mate Perez, Chief Engineer Santos, Second Engineer Aquino, and Bosun Beetle, all chuckled, and made various sarcastic remarks about hang-ashores and landlubbers. The captain set a stoneware bottle down in front of Trey with a mighty thump. That's a thump. And said in a thick, murky sort of English, "Same off draught down him, gie poor Holland chin. I will occur anything. They say he is Lord Lazarus from the dead get raised." Boy, that's quite an accent, huh? The captain was an immense, square-built man with a square-shaped head, shaved perfectly bald. Can you imagine he shaved his head perfectly bald? From scalp to collar. Scalp to collar. His complexion was uniformly maroon. It occurred to Trey that he was seeing some peculiarly colored people this day. Another sip of apple juice here. That's good apple juice. But they don't have any of that on the Moonstruck. Now, there came in the cook, George Washington Wallace, and set a huge pewter soup tureen in front of Captain Hootsma, who personally ladled and served a bowl to each man. It proved to be almost tasteless potato soup, and, watching it slither back and forth in its bowl with the motion of the ship, Trey began to feel a bit queasy himself. The remainder of the meal only confirmed that the cook had been right to be critical of his own cooking. It consisted of more potatoes, boiled, tough, pickled pork, tough blunting ship's biscuits, and for dessert, rather slimy peaches in a can. The captain must have been the only one to enjoy the supper, as he washed out every bite with a hearty swig of gin. Since only half of the diners spoke English, the table talk was conducted in Spanish. Not that it mattered much. The captain did most of the talking, and his Spanish was as coarsely accented as his English. In translation, it would have sounded something like this. "What for is thee, Mr. Crabtree, to Mexico going?" he inquired of Trey. The boy explained as much as he knew of Caleb's mission to the Chiapas jungle, and added, "I'm halfway thinking of going with him." The captain shook his massive bald head. "Once! I want a short way into the jungle. Once we are enough. A rubber plantation there I visited, and he broke off and asked suddenly, "Have you ever seen Hickok, a Vistaba, a Baltimore, Dura pie?" Oh boy. They shook his head. "No, sir. The Indian verb is Hickok, but the Spanish, avispa, ahocadura. Can you translate that?" "The Indian verb is Hishklok," Trey said in English. "It would mean the hanging wasp." "Yeah, think maybe it means he makes a nest that hangs." "It don't. It means the hangman wasp. It means he stinks you in the hand, in the finger. No, that's a finker. No matter. The venom in the stink tightens the muscles of your throat, so you strangle to death." "Oh no, he's strangled to death." Need another sip of apple cider after that one. "Golly!" breathed Trey. "There is the tree the Indians called Chechikum. Like ordinary tree it looks. So what? So you touch it. Just touch it. And your hand turns all black and blue. And blistered. It swells up twice the size and feels like you're holding it on fire. If you do not quickly get treatment, the poison in your system goes. It don't kill you, but you never be a sick man the rest of your life." Far from tightening Trey, the captain's revelations fascinated him. He would like to see the fantastic curiosities. He said eagerly, "Tell me more, Captain Hootsma." "Well, in the reefer here, once I saw ein serene. How you say, una serena?" "A mermaid?" exclaimed Trey in amazement. Involuntarily he scoffed. "Ha ha ha ha! Tell us about her one." Then hastily added, "Sir." "Foolish boy! You distribute the verb of the master of the SS Godspeed. You go there and sail a reefer. You will see mermaid. This I guarantee. Trey glanced covertly at the bottle of Holland gin the captain had presented to him, and suspected that the Captain Hootsma had probably also seen pink elephants in his time. Pink elephants. But he promised to keep on a lookout for bare-bosomed ladies with fishtails if he did decide to go to Chiapas. Then he made his excuses to the company and left them to their port wine and cigars. In the gangway, he had to thread his way past a crowd of crewmen lined up with their mess kits at the gallery door, when the cook was ladling out some of the swill Trey had just eaten. Every one of the sailors gave Trey a friendly "Buenas noches" as he passed, everyone but one. In the cabin, as Trey had, of course, expected, he found Caleb Crabtree still alive, though looking as if he wished he weren't. Trey presented the green man with a stoneware bottle. "I've brought you a sure and certain cure, Mr. Crabtree," he said solemnly. "Captain Hootsma told me that this would raise Lazarus from the dead." "Or put him back there again," said the little man weakly, reading the label. "I've never touched a drop of ardent spirit since my young and scapegrace days. But I dare say, in this last and mortal extremity, even the Newton Presbyterian Ladies' Temperance Society would forgive me." They fetched a smudgy glass from the washstand. Caleb inexpertly poured an inordinately large amount of the gin and drank it off in one gulp. All right, let me take apple juice instead. Apple juice. Good apple juice. Trey fetched a smudgy glass from the washstand. Caleb unexpectedly poured in a big glass of gin and drank it off in one gulp. He immediately turned a number of other extraordinary colors, coughed and retched and strangled as if he had been stung by a hangman's wasp. "In the name of mercy," he gurgled, when he could pour the coffin varnish out of the porthole. Trey struggled and started to obey. "No way!" gasped Mr. Crabtree. "'Twould kill every fish from here to the Grand Banks. Stow it somewhere, my boy." Trey set the bottle on the washstand and asked, "Do you feel any better for it? Or perhaps 'twill be a sedative to make my passing easier. But I'll not see daybreak, Trey. I told you, I thought I'd been bitten by some venomous insect. Now I know it. I itch intolerably. See?" He pulled one trouser leg up to his knee. Oh, he reached out and pulled his trouser leg up to his knee. Trey looked. Most impertinently, he mimicked the captain's accent and grunted. "Mr. Crabtree, does our petpock bites?" "Petpock bites?" "Hey," said Caleb, "have you been drinking too, lad?" "I said those are bed bug bites." Trey repeated in his own voice, "Tell you what, if you can stand up for a minute, I'll douse the whole bunk frame with the gin. If kerosene will clear out bed bugs, this stuff ought to work even better." That's what he did, removing the mattresses and covers and sloshing the liquor along the two bunks, uprights and cross pieces, the web rope springs. This did nothing to improve the cabin's aroma, but it did the job. The bed bugs evidently departed in haste for more congenial quarters. Anyway, neither Trey nor Caleb was bitten again during the voyage. Even the survive anything cockroaches disappeared from the cabin after Trey spilled the gin. But Trey got precious little sleep that night. Though Mr. Crabtree still maintained that it would not be alive in the morning, the gin had revived this particular Lazarus, at least to the state of the most talkative corpse. Trey would be dropping off to sleep when Caleb would make some remark like, "Do you believe in the hereafter, my boy?" Trey would wake up with a start and mumble that so far he had found no reason to disbelieve. Then his eyes would close and he'd begin to doze off again. That's Trey dozing off. "I wonder, shall I be going up or down?" said Mr. Crabtree. Trey would twitch awake again and mutter something, then his eyelids would droop again. He'd be falling asleep, and that's Trey falling asleep again. "I can't think of any real sins I've ever committed." Trey could think of one Mr. Crabtree was committing right now. He was depriving a growing boy of a night's sleep. But they merely mumbled, and soon was drifting off again. I take that back. Once in South Boston, I sniggled a banana from an old Italian vendor's pushcart. Trey silently cursed the captain of the Godspeed, the innocent Lazarus, and the inventor of Holland gin. He snapped irritably, "Send the man a banana from Mexico." "My dear boy," sighed Caleb, "that happened more than half a century ago, when I was younger than you are. The chap is certainly dead by now. Perhaps I'll meet him and can make amends." With that, his sleep having been so often interrupted, Trey was muzzy and bleary-eyed when he rolled out 4 bells, or 6 in the morning. Bong, 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 bong. All right, that's 4 bells. Or 6 in the morning. Washcloth and toothbrush in hand, he went in search of a bathroom, only to learn that there was not a single such thing on the entire ship. The only way to bathe, even for the infrequent paying customer passenger like himself, was to stand in front of the deck hydrant every morning at this chilly hour when the sailors were giving the decks their daily hose down. There, Trey suffered the breathtaking shock of a gush of frigid North Atlantic seawater and washed with a bar of scratchy saltwater soap. At least it had the good effect of bringing him wide awake. Mr. Crabtree went on sleeping the sleep of a sinless while Trey dressed. Trey did not wake the poor old fellow. He went off to breakfast and found it about as appetizing as the supper had been. Gluey oatmeal, musty-smelling cold storage eggs fried to rubber, and coffee of a rancid bitterness that not even a liberal application of sweet condensed milk could disguise. Ugh. This morning, Captain Hootsma, prevailing maroon color extended even to his eyebrows. He merely grunted at the table-mates, gobbled his breakfast, arose abruptly, and disappeared towards his quarters. Whoa, I messed that one up. The bosun chief and second engineer seemed equally disinclined to conversation, and second mate Zavala, recently relieved on the bridge by the first mate, was cordial but very tired. So the miserable breakfast was not even spiced by any interesting table talk. Afterwards, Trey went out on deck. He couldn't strike up a conversation there, since everyone seemed busy with one task or another. So he leaned against the bulwarks and watched what view there was, which wasn't much. The sky was bright October blue and cloudless. The sea was greenish black with dancing lights. There was no longer any land to be seen. The ship seemed to be standing still in the precise center of an immense round greenish black plate, lit with a bright blue glass dome. Now the air was only mildly October chill. There was not a bit of wind, so the Godspeed rode in a clinging cloud of its own bad breath, smoke and soot from the stack, and sickly caramel stink of oil and grease from the engine room ventilators. The appalling smells of the cook's cooking, the brassy smell of new machinery, and other unidentified odors from the cargo hold ventilators. What an ugly ship! Trey was soon bored with this calm and uninteresting scene. He wandered again to the saloon, where he had glimpsed reading materials laid out on a sideboard. He found a number of long outdated Veracruz and Boston newspapers, and a few old English language magazines. Godey's Lady Book and Joy Bells for Young Christians, which a quick rifle through did not inspire him to read. He went back on deck. I'm going to sit up here. All right, here we go. Where the men were still too busy to pay him any attention. He was almost desperate with boredom when, wonder of wonders, along came Mr. Crabtree, rumpled from having slept in his clothes, but cheerful, and chuckling over the letter he had written to his brothers. Trey was ever so glad to have company again, but he could not forbear saying, "See, I told you that you'd feel better soon. That you were only seasick." "Now, lad, you know sickness is a trivial thing, and what I suffered assuredly wasn't. Perhaps 'twas a reassurance of the influenza I contracted during the epidemic back in '90. At any rate, 'tis certain I'd have died but for Captain Hootsma's prescription. I must thank him at the earliest opportunity. The prescription doesn't seem to do the captain much good," Trey remarked dryly. Caleb reread and again chuckled over his deathbed testament. "I seem to have a tendency to the melodramatic. Oh, come on, Grandpa. I fear I attend the Boston theaters rather more often than our Reverend Noteworthy approves." He tore up the letter and let the pieces flutter over the side. "I believe you said you have no brothers, Trey?" "No, sir. I have a sister, Susan. She's 7 years older than I am." "Ah, then your family estate is being competently looked after until you get there. That's good." Suddenly Mr. Crabtree's stomach mumbled, almost as loudly as the muted engines beneath the iron deck, "My word! I must say, I can hardly wait for the noon meal." Trey smiled, a pitying smile, knowing that the noon meal was going to be terrible. All right, that's the end of the chapter. Tomorrow, we start again.